Okay, so this is my game I made for the Asymmetrical game challenge, assignment, whatever. So the way it works, and if you can see that little info card over there, one player deals the cards, these cards, and then player 2 flips them over. Player 1 wins, player 2 gets both the skulls. Player 2, however, wins if they get both the treasures. And obviously, player 1 loses and vice versa and all that. These 5 cards, however, are just empty spaces. They technically don't matter. They're there in a sense to create tension, as there's less things to flip and it becomes more nerve-wracking. After one player wins, or loses, depending on who you are, you flip who deals the cards and who flips the cards, and then you do that best 2 out of 3. I tried to put that right at the corner there. I don't know if you can really read that all too well, but I ran out of space, sadly. It's a pretty simple game though, so I'm not too worried. And I wanted it to be simple, as I overcomplicated the tic-tac-toe challenge, and I really thought about that. As for this game, however, the name of the game is also there too, Pirate's Treasure. I'm not sure why I actually made a pirate theme. I should probably make those treasure chests too. But you know what? Pirate looks for gems too, so it's fine. At least in Sea of Thieves, they look for gems sometimes. So, the initial version of this game featured like a tries sort of thing, like you had 5 chances to win, and if you didn't, you lost. That didn't really work. The game was just really frustrating as a result, because there was eventually a point where it's clear you weren't going to win. And there was more treasures too to find, which made it even harder to win. So I changed it to the system of get these 2 to win, get those 2 you lose, if you're flipping anyway. Then it's the other way around if you're the one who's dealing with it, who's dealing the cards. And the strategy for the player dealing the cards, obviously, is to put the skulls in places where they think the other player is going to flip, is more likely to flip, then put those in the places where they weren't going to. That's the strategy, of course. And then the strategy for player 2 is to try to guess where player 1 is going to put stuff down. And originally, it didn't have the best 2 out of 3 either, but that was added in as well, just kind of randomly. But that also helps, as some players during the playtest said that it felt a little bit unbalanced towards the dealer's favor, player 1's, because they had, well, more power of the cards, but that's a part of the old asymmetric idea anyway. I also got some feedback on special cards to replace these water cards that gave some advantages or disadvantages to one of the players. The idea being that if they flipped 2 advantage cards, player 2 that is, they would be able to ask the dealer a question like, or maybe not a question, but like a guess, like, is this card this a treasure? Or could it be that is a treasure on the top row, columns? Then the disadvantage card would do something else, like maybe flip 2 cards. I didn't really like this because I liked how simple this game was. And well, back in the playtest I used a regular deck of cards, which I think helped with the simplicity, but still, simplicity I think was a big strong suit of this. And I wanted to keep that. Not only that, but I don't know how balanced or fair the advantage/disadvantage cards would be, because if you got an advantage with only like 2 cards left, it's like, which one is this or that? And I guess there'd be stipulations for that. Same thing with the disadvantage cards, actually. The disadvantage card allowed the dealer to move the placements of cards. If there's only 2 cards left, it's like, what are they going to do? Similarly, it actually doesn't matter if the player 2 immediately flips both disadvantage cards. Then player 1 moves the cards around, and it doesn't matter because that's just they weren't going to know which ones they were anyway. So I decided to keep that out. It's a little hard to play both one-handed and alone, but ideally you'd flip the cards in some order, scramble them up somehow. And then I'm just gonna set this up real quick. These are made with sticky notes, so they're kind of stuck together. I'm not looking at any of the cards. They're just face down in a pile over here, so I actually don't know what I'm doing. So I may win or I may lose. So that's kind of fun. Oh, see, like I just got a diamond there, and that's happened to some players in the playtest too. Sometimes they immediately get a good card, or sometimes a bad card too, or sometimes they just flip nothing but water cards, which was a bit of a complaint. Oh, I just flipped a skull there, so I'm doing kind of bad. Now, more water. But as much as the water might be a little frustrating, just to keep flipping the water cards, it builds tension, because it's like, oh no, there's only so many other cards I can actually flip. Oh, there we go. I lost against myself somehow. But still, that's basically how it works. And I feel like it's simple enough to really play. I'm just flipping more cards out of sheer boredom. I can't believe it. It was in the other corner. But that's, wow, that was legitimately random. It made a perfect pattern, but that's the thing though. That's part of the strategy. Normally with 2 players, the player dealing the cards would think, like, okay, where am I going to put this? So if this was actually dealt non-randomly, I guess I or somebody else could think, okay, so I'm going to put this one here, I'm going to put this one over here, and I'm going to bet that the player flipping the cards thinks that I'm going to put both the treasures together. But if they tried flipping either this one or this one, they'd say, okay, that one's not that one. So then they go over here, and like, oh no, I got the skull card. That's not what I was planning for. That's a problem. So I need to switch up my strategy or keep going. Some players choose the corners first. So if I dealt against them, maybe I prefer putting these cards in the corners, the skull cards specifically, in the corners instead. Again, it's simple, but I think there's actually a lot of strategy here. So I didn't want to include the advantage cards / disadvantage cards earlier, despite being a part of the feedback, because I think it would take away from the core concepts that we're really trying to get at here, that being simplicity, really.